Shalom. Welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Dalmar, together with my co-host Mark Rona, just Statewide News Service, jbiztechvalley.com, and now columnist for the Jewish Press.
And I'm having a lot of fun doing all of that, and I often go to the Common Council meetings and of Albany Common Council meetings. And our guest here today is Frank Commisso, who's a vocal member of the Common Council. He's also a numbers guy, works for the Comptroller, State Comptroller.
Yes.
So welcome back to the Jewish View. You've been here before, and I think it's wonderful that we treated you so nicely before that you decided to come back again.
Anytime. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Rabbi. And I'm no longer with the State Comptroller's office.
Where are you now?
I now work with the County Comptroller.
Oh, you are?
Michael Connors. Yes, I've been over there for over a year now.
Wow.
You gotta keep up with the news, Mark.
Well, I hope you got a hand raise if nothing else. So anyway.
I was in a very big pond. Now it's a smaller pond.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're keeping our finances in the county, together and overlooking, the finance, because the county finances seem to be doing a lot better than the city finances.
Yeah. Well, the county, for one, the county does have sales tax revenues that, they have a much greater proportion of the sales tax revenue than the city has. So in recent years, over the past really 4 years, you've seen the county rebound nicely. They've also made some changes to their operations and made some changes at the Albany County Nursing Home as well.
Yeah.
So
Under the 8%, though, isn't it 4% go to the city, 4% to go to the county, or my numbers are wrong? You're the numbers guy.
No, there's actually a larger portion that goes over to the county. Of the 4% that gets split, the 4% of the sales tax that goes to the localities across New York State, most counties have it set up where 60% of that goes to the county and 40% gets divided amongst the cities, towns, and villages.
So tell me what the city can do with its $18.5 million deficit. How do we close that?
Well,
10% of the budget is deficit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it to begin with, is that you have 10% that you're off balance, 10% in a $180 million organization. But I will tell you, the number always kind of moves, and 18.5 is a new number that I see that got out and got cited. We have a $12.5 million request in New York State that hopefully will be fulfilled in the next handful of days.
And then you need the other third of that. That fills 2/3 of the gap, and then you still got a astounding $6 million deficit.
Yeah, and I believe the 18.5 that they now refer to, and again, I don't have any figures to substantiate the number that they're providing, but that 18.5, I believe, is a reference to next year's budget or 2017 financial planning. So, again, you have 12.5 in place. The city has a structural deficit. In addition, has a landfill that will be closing at some point in the near future. So you have this perfect storm.
It's a loss of revenue, or it's a good thing, or
when you look at an annual budget for the city, it's a loss of revenue. Now, certainly, there's a lot of folks that have said for a number of years that having a landfill and operating and owning a municipal landfill is not necessarily a great line of business, and we're finding out the hard way now, because there's a lot of costs that, if you almost picture like an accordion here, and that squeezes tighter and tighter, when you have these costs laid out on the back end and you haven't reserved any of the money you've collected at the landfill, that really creates a big problem on the back end, where you have to then be looking at having potentially $10 million immediately upon closure and some significant dollars thereafter to maintain and be in compliance with federal and state regs.
Does the Common Council have a finance committee, and are you chairman of it, or do you do it?
No longer. I was exiled at the halfway point of our term. The mayor and Richard Conte didn't want me to do that anymore, but I'm still. Well, I think, look, the Common Council, there's a difference in view amongst Common Council members, and there's probably about a third of the council that thinks that the council's should play a proactive role in the management of the city, and there's about 2/3 of the council that really subscribes to the rubber stamp approach of just approving the decisions of executive management and moving those through. That's okay. Look, I'm still on the finance committee, and I still have the same effect or impact that I would have otherwise.
So who's the chair? Who will you?
Now the chair of the committee is Judy Deschette from the 9th Ward.
And her husband is the city court judge?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, it's the same committee members.
But I'm saying, going along the line of walking lockstep with the administration, Judy is one of those people who still walks lockstep with the mayor.
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, she's been a strong supporter of the mayor. I don't know that, again, about 2/3 of the council has been really strong supporters of, the policies that have come out of City Hall. But when you look at those policies, and, we just kind of talked about waste management, and I think we've really stumbled there for a couple of years. You look at departments like building and codes. You look at the budgeting in the city. Things like red light cameras that really have driven not really. They haven't driven any revenue into the city.
They said that, I heard that it would be $1 million or something.
And we've made no money off of these, and these were
Really?
projected to make $2 million in the city
You're
budget.
talking about million.
So, you look at this whole range of issues now that have been presented to the city. Most recently, a trash fee has been implemented where people are being charged $180 for their trash pickup. And, again, myself, council members Bailey, Robinson, Crasher, Michael O'Brien, I think have had open minds and have been thoughtful throughout here. And unfortunately, there's been another 2/3 of the council that is not. So that's something that isn't going to change. I mean, I'm past we're over halfway through this term, mind you. And, we're about a year away from when people will be running for re-election. So I'm past the point of, trying to reconcile that here and now. You need new elected officials in the city of Albany. And some people might just, happen to retire, or some people might have primaries.
Yeah.
But that's the process. And there's no reason to skirt around the process. That's the way it's set up, and that's I'm sure what will happen.
What about Jack Flynn? How does he, because he sometimes votes against the mayor, sometimes he's in favor of the mayor,
No, I mean, I think he's looking at the issues and making a determination on a case-by-case
So
basis.
he's not walking lockstep with the mayor, he's...
it's hard to characterize everybody else's
No, but
voting
I thought you
patterns.
knew him because you sit right in back of him, he sits in front of you, but then you chat a lot, and I just thought maybe you had a better sense of, than someone who would sit at the opposite end of the council, I just thought you might have a better handle on his...
I mean, just because of seating proximity, it's hard to judge how somebody...
Well, you're also similar age, and you also have a...
Yeah, no, absolutely. Jack's a friend of mine, but, people have their own voting record, and look, it's a lot easier, again, I'd rather speak in the affirmative about, again, I mentioned Bailey, Robinson, Crash, O'Brien seem to be...
You mentioned Flynn, so there you go. Okay.
Well, no, I mean, Jack's a friend of mine that I talk to very frequently.
There's another way of revenue, and I saw that the Assembly member, Pat Fahey, just said that the state should chip in because, and again, help me out with the numbers, Mark, so much of the percentage of Albany is either SUNY or it's the state capital.
60% taxes on property.
And so therefore, isn't Pat Fahey just saying, hey, the state owes the but, would be nice.
Because we still have to supply fire and police and, still use city resources.
So, maybe they can
toss
in a few $1 million over here into the kitty.
Most recently, the state, they update this number every year. The most recent number of the state said 61% of the city's property is tax exempt. It was a little over 61. And we just had a reassessment, and we know that number will inch up a bit more. It'll be closing in on 2/3 of the city being tax exempt when you look at all the value.
My assessment went down, by the way.
Yours went down. My assessment did go up significantly.
Well, that's because you're speaking out against the mayor? No, just teasing.
No.
I'm joking.
No. Our assessor's very good. He, I may protest my assessment, but
move on. I'm just
so, nonetheless,
yes.
It's easy to look at the state initially and
Yes.
say, New York State, and I get that, and that call has been around for a number of years. Previous mayor, Mayor Jennings, commissioned a report on this matter. The Common Council last term commissioned a report on the issue of tax exempt properties. As well, and even more broadly than just the state impact, if you look at state capitals across the country and you look at the city of Albany, and it definitely fits the pattern here, you have this growth of educational medical institutions. So in Albany, Albany Med does some great things. They're one of the largest employers in the city. St. Peter is doing some great things. Certainly, if you look at the corner of Washington and Fuller Roads, it's just amazing what's going on there when you have dozens of for-profit companies embedded into the structure that's received significant federal and state subsidies through direct capital infusions and huge local subsidy in the form of being tax exempt. And these institutions are, they have found a way in the law to call themselves charitable entities and still have for-profit tenants with shareholders making large sums of money. And when we have to provide those services to those entities year-round, and keep streets clean, keep street lights lit, have police, have fire services, It's just amazing. And something needs to really change nationwide for many cities, and specifically here in New York State and in the city of Albany. You need a change there. And luckily, as you mentioned, Pat Fahey, John McDonald certainly have been receptive about this issue. I think they understand it well. But how do we get that broader understanding?
What about Neil Breslin?
I think Senator Breslin understands the issue as well.
But he's in the minority, so he doesn't have much pull.
I think there needs to be a broader and quite frankly, a bipartisan understanding of this issue of tax-exempt properties. I don't think that this is necessarily a Republican or Democratic issue. I think it's something that folks should look at, and even in upstate New York, Western New York, let's say, when you look at these smaller college towns, and they have large colleges and universities in town that don't pay taxes, there needs to be some way for the local governments, the school districts, the counties, and the library districts to have some sort of recapture of that benefit beyond just the alleged impacts of improved sales tax revenues and improved employment prospects. There needs to be some direct payment in place.
Okay, so let's talk about this garbage fee.
Sure.
I mean, what happened?
Talk about garbage.
Yeah, I mean, I want to know, like, what, there was, this was a measure that was put into the budget in 2016-17, that budget, and then you wanted to, some people wanted to repeal it on the Common Council, and they were, can you go into the,
Sure.
what happened?
So in October of 2015, the Common Council starts to consider the mayor's 2016 budget proposal. And just to be clear, we run on full calendar years.
You do?
Yeah, so January 1 through December 31. A trash fee was put in place for 2016, 17, 18, and 19 on rental units. Now, the fee is $180 per unit. Of course, I do find it ironic that there's been many recommendations made in the city that we need to change the way we do business. There's many places to generate savings, okay? And now we have a budget shortfall and we're starting to charge for trash pickup, which was something that, even 2-3 years ago, everybody said, no, that will never happen. Well, it's here and now. And certainly I think that this will extend to owner-occupied homes as well very soon. I mean, Richard Conti.
Right now, it's only two, what is it?
I don't know what you mean by a unit. Do you mean each apartment?
So, yes. So 2 units, 3 units, 4 units in a dwelling, in a structure, is right now charged. Those are all charged, the second, third, and fourth
Private home
unit.
wouldn't be?
Private home is not currently charged. However, the leader of the Common Council, Richard Conti, has already said, well, he wants to put in an amendment to his own law. And by the way, he did not show up to any of the meetings since to talk about his trash fee over the past 3 months. But now he wants to put in a amendment to his own law to extend this to owner-occupied homes as well. I mean, I think really, the city needs to take a step back. There's ways to do this and actually generate revenue from trash, modest revenue, in a fair way. Some of the speakers last night talked about charging for bulk items, so that in May, when college students leave town and there's futons and small 3-foot refrigerators and couches and recliners all out on the curb, there would be a charge in place for those.
To the landlord?
It depends on how you structure the system. You could have it go to the person who actually puts it out because they'd have to have a sticker attached, or it could go to the landlord. We'd have to study what the appropriate way to do that is. But there are many municipalities who already do that.
I know that Bethlehem, it's private, and they'll charge you for regular garbage pickup, but like you say, a mattress or et cetera, things like that, you have to pay extra.
Yeah, mattresses are another great example. So, bulk items are a great way to take some of these items and have a charge in place, and you're not charging people for the routine trash that is being picked up. But we don't have a problem with the amount of garbage that the city of Albany creates, right? That's the thing that I think has really been lost in this, and I hope, through being on the show today and talking about it more recently, 10% of the city of Albany's landfill is from the city of Albany. The other 90% is coming from other places. So much of that's coming from commercial haulers who are being charged a low rate at the city of Albany, but of course the city's cash flow demands are that we need to sell space to them. Something I very much disagree with. Our basic problem is budgeting in the city, having a financial plan that makes sense. And as you said at the beginning, Mark, I mean, you're thinking about it in the right way, is that the city effectively, we can argue about numbers and different, but we're 10% off right now, right? We're 10% off. You have a $180 million budget, and you really have about $160 or $164 million in recurring revenue. You're about 10% off. It's somewhere in that category. And you have to change some of the ways that you do things. And that may mean that you have to look at our ability to have a municipal concert series down the river. You may have to look at things like having consultants conduct work that many other municipalities have insourced, that we have the employees to do, by the way. We have a lot of employees. So we can do many of these functions that have been outsourced. You have to get vehicle policies in place. You have to make sure that when you employees separate from service, that you don't give them a large and unwarranted buyout, which has been done in the city. All these things, you have to really put together a group of people between all the elected offices, all 19, to be quite honest with you, but the mayor, the common council, you have a treasurer, you have a city auditor, and you have to have some good minds together where you can start to really look at these across the board issues. And you're not just having some very sloppily put together fee that really you could come up with in a few minutes and say, well, Michael O'Brien made a great comment last night on the floor talking about the trash fees. Well, this was really put together in about 3 minutes. You could just do the math, and this was the way that they did it. Well, that doesn't really make it right. And of course, Michael voted, for the repeal of the trash fee last night, which was great. But we need to have the broader thought here and start thinking about things.
Well, I think
across
that's why,
the board.
you say you work for the Albany County and Comptroller, and Mark and I have many elected officials or people
Sure.
in the area. And the Albany County Nursing Home, I think, is a good example where, Larry came in and he said that he didn't fire anybody. That's also an easy way. Let's just cut 10% of the police force and, we just saved 10% of services. Well, you don't want to do that. But, he just reorganized in certain ways, like you're saying, cut a little fat there, reorganize here, talk to the unions there. And he literally saved millions of dollars just by, like you're saying, reorganizing. So I think that would be the step forward for Albany also.
And you make a great point there. The nursing home just 3-4 years ago its future was highly in question. But it goes to show that that approach you suggested, and to be very candid about it too, also engaging with the employees. Employees in local government, they're not stupid. If you come to them and you're being reasonable, you present the numbers to them, and you show that we need to have a shared sacrifice here. There's ways to do things when you're avoiding layoffs, because nobody wants to be in a situation where you're removing employees. But I will tell you, as I come here right now, just on my way over, I'm walking in, I check my email. I have an iPhone, just pulling it up, and job postings are up for other jobs that are not essential jobs in the city. The director of special events, and say that's not an essential job, but these are the things that go on regularly in city government. And the great thing about last night was, you have a meeting, and we come up on the short end of the vote, but you have many people there watching the meeting. You have people following the meeting on Twitter, Facebook, as it's going on. Channel Albany. There's many people following along as they go here, and we're talking about that meeting the next day. You're having people wake up and say, "Geez, what's going on there is not right." And the city of Albany has gotten a 2-year pass. I get it, fine and well. But I think people are locking in now. They're looking at things like the reassessment, like the trash fee, and they're saying, "This is not what I want to see happen in my city." So that's encouraging.
What did you think of the gentleman who, during the public comment, who said this is a dead city? I thought that was shocking.
Yeah,
I
Wayne.
don't know if he said that for effect, but I was wondering.
I think Wayne was one of the final speakers, and I think he really made a great comment there. That he said, what you saw there was the frustration. Somebody's just losing faith in the city and saying that this isn't right. This isn't, this is a place that he's lived for very many years. He's from downstate, down there in New York, and he had said that he had moved up here many years back and has a couple of apartments, and that's part of the way he supports himself and his family. That's great. And he says, again, I think he's got good relationships with his tenants there over the past couple of years. However, people are starting to lose faith when you have reassessments that go up $10,000, $20,000. You get a trash fee in the mail, and then the poor folks who have 3 units being charged, or even 2, they're getting $540 or $360 bills. So that's something that, I could see how these people lose the confidence and start to get really dire about the city's prospects.
So what's the, we were talking to Paula Mahan also, who had a budget deficit when she first took over 9 years ago, and she had a 1-year, one-time tax. that was a separate line on the tax bill, and then it, for 1 year, and then it went away. And, you know, so can the city do something like that to say, where the mayor would come out and say, look, we learned from other municipalities, we're just gonna do this one-time thing just to close our budget gap, and then that'll be it, we'll be on the road to healing and success?
Yeah, Mark, I haven't researched the legal end of that, but I do think that that approach, certainly the way you describe it, having that approach is something that can inspire some level of confidence from people in your municipality, because you know you're really kind of laying it all out on the table,
Yeah.
face up, and you're saying, these are the problems we face. This is a one-time, non-recurring charge, and that's something that I think people are a lot more receptive to, and they'll be open to. I mean, they still want to hear the how you're going to make this not be the case a year later. But in the case of the town of Colony, yeah, there was that one-time charge. They must have found a way to do it legally where it worked out, and you know, I think then it's more palatable to people that this is going to go away at the end of this calendar year.
You know, and let me ask you this, you know, in the state legislature, you have the governor proposes and the legislature disposes. I mean, you know, so they have their own budget committees, each of the two houses. You don't seem to have in the common council any employee who can present an alternative budget to the mayor and say, okay, here's the way we'd like to see the budget, and then go into negotiations and do back and forth. I mean, it's what she proposes, and then you either, you know, the common council sometimes either, you know, chips away at a little bit, or, you know, just passes it, you know, passes 99% of what she proposes. I mean,
Last year there were alternative proposals that were there. I mean, I'm very capable as a legislator to go through the budget and pull the data and be able to make some changes to the budget. I mean, but the rest of the common council, I mean, you have people that either don't have, you know, they don't want to stand up and say, geez, we want to make some changes in the budget. It's a $180 million spending plan. So, you know, you would think that there would be some amount that the Common Council would amend in the budget. Last year, the Common Council did not amend $1 of the $180 million spending plan. That's a plan that the charter assigns to the Common Council for 2 months, October and November, subject to public hearing, had a trash fee in it that was totally new. And there's no changes made to the budget. The year prior,
public hearing?
Yeah, we're required to have the public hearings by law. The year prior, the only changes in the budget were the result of the work that myself and a handful of other council members had put together related to a plan to privatize the crossing guards that we were able to take out of the budget, and some other small items. But again, the 2/3 of the Common Council that is always supportive of the mayor's office has never been forthcoming with any thoughts, ideas they have. And you know, this is all documented by emails. You know, when we send out emails, I did the past couple of years in my role on the Finance Committee, send out emails to the full council and say, you know, as we get towards the amendment process, guys, anything that you have that's a priority, please come forward with it. Nothing. You just, you know, everybody just sits around and waits. And then we go to caucus, and you put this out on the table and say, you know, anything people have, and they just stare at you, or they just, you know, look down at the table. So, you know, again, I think that you're going to need elections now at this point to really kind of cleanse the system in City Hall. You know, hopefully then you get some people in, and not everybody has to be an accountant, not everybody has to be an actuary or an economics man. No, not at all. In fact, many good legislators are not, but there needs to be some base level of competency there on fiscal issues, certainly in the next term. And then beyond that, having that, you know, minimal base level understanding, there needs to be people that really take the job seriously and say that they're not just going to go through the motions, but they're going to actually play a role.
Do you have confidence in the new budget director, who is the daughter of the former assemblyman? I mean, do you have...
Well, you know,
Rachel
I saw Rachel at City Hall last night.
But do you have confidence in her ability? Because I don't know of any budgeting background that she has, or finance background that she really has.
Yeah, I haven't worked with her directly yet. So, you know, I saw her last night in her first, that was the first Common Council meeting she had been at as budget director. So I saw her up there and congratulated her on the new job.
But you didn't see a resume, or you don't know what her...
That's a job that was not subject to Common Council confirmation.
No, but you could still, through Freedom of Information, or just as a courtesy to the Common Council member, ask the mayor to see a resume, and you could say, you know, wow, this is not what I would expect in a budget director. It's something that I would expect. I mean,
Yeah, we didn't foil her resume or application to the mayor's office. It's going to be a challenging position, certainly, but
I mean, the previous
I hope
budget
the
director
best.
didn't do very well, obviously, because we still got this budget deficit, and she wasn't very good at budgeting because, it didn't change much under her leadership.
Yeah, but even you talk about the budget director, and at any level of government, being the budget director, ultimately, you're a reflection of the management structure that you're within. And if you don't have strong fiscal management in place down at City Hall, in key elected positions, it's going to be hard for the budget director to succeed. And that's in any instance. So I hope the best for anybody who is budget director in the city of Albany, because I want to see the city do well. But I think there's some institutional challenges in place to whoever that person is.
Mm-hmm. No, I think there are a lot of opportunities for the city administration to do better. There was one gentleman who got up and said that there was, the mayor ran as a progressive, and this is hardly a progressive way. It's a regressive fee or a regressive way of administering the city. And he really called the mayor on the carpet for a progressive label and reality not being perception not meeting reality.
Yeah, I mean, I'm often careful with those labels because I've come to find that they don't mean a whole lot.
Yeah.
People run very often. In recent years, people say, well, I'm progressive and I'm running, or people will accuse each other of being regressive. I'm careful with the labels, but I'd like to think that I'm able to call it, fair the way I see it and without the labels. But, you open yourself up to that when you have constant mailings and literature going out alleging that you're progressive, which, was the new term that kind of came into play about 10 years ago now, when Democrats didn't want to call themselves liberals anymore.
That's right.
They said, I'm progressive, and that kind of caught and really did well, and it's been on a good 10-year run.
Well, Mario Cuomo always said he was a progressive pragmatist. That was his word back in the 80s. I was a progressive pragmatist.
Yeah,
and
again,
we had to look up what that meant because we never heard it before.
Yeah, the labels are tough, and it's true at the state level as well, and even at the federal level. I don't know what the labels really mean. You see that even in the presidential race, the Democratic primary now is the candidates argue, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, over who's the progressive candidate, and I struggle with that a bit.
Just for curiosity factor, do you have a stake in the horse race for president? Since do you?
No, I think the primary coming up on April 19th. The good thing about it is you get that uptick in voter registrations because the deadline's actually this week. It's Friday.
Do you care of which?
No, I mean I think the Democrats will have a strong candidate either way.
Who's your preference?
Look, at this point, I mean, I think Hillary Clinton has put together a good campaign. She's running strong. She's won a handful of states so far that,
Don't worry that you're on the Jewish View and the Jewish candidate is not getting your endorsement, Bernie Sanders. That's okay. Don't worry about that.
You had to come at me with that.
Oh, I'm just teasing. Just the last few minutes, I'm just.
But
both candidates.
Both candidates really have done quite well. In fact, there's a lot of polling suggest Bernie Sanders is in a better position he's in a better position against the eventual Republican nominee. So,
are you resigned as a New Yorker? Are you resigned to the fact that Donald Trump is going to be the Republican?
Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, unless the Republican Party is just going to totally self-destruct and implode in Cleveland, but I would imagine these bitter feelings eventually they'll kind of rein these in, and they'll get behind a candidate. They'll have a vice president, but. Right now, I mean, there's a lot of folks. He has very high negatives that, at least have been reported on through the polling to date. And it's tough to turn that around when you make the comments you make about, large groups of people across the country. That's tough to come back from, but it's been a crazy year to date, so we'll just have to stay tuned.
Thanks, Frank.
All right, Frank, you're doing good work. Thank you for your annual report to the Jewish View. And, continue good success what you're doing for the people of the city of Albany, and you also now the county of Albany, and continue with good success.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Mark. Thank you both.